Welcome back to the Kosi Arsenal channel. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. Arsenal have a new signing this summer, and that's none other than Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. And the signing of Martin Zubimendi has caused quite a stir around Arsenal. Many people are asking the question, is he better than Thomas Partey? Is he coming to replace Partey, or is he coming to replace Jorginho? How will Arsenal line up with Martin Zubimendi? Who is he going to replace in this team? And many of the Arsenal fans don't want it to be Thomas Partey. So in this video, what we're going to do is look at how Martin Zubimendi would line up at Arsenal. Does he replace Partey? If he replaces Partey, how do Arsenal cope with that? If he replaces Jorginho, how does it look like? And how do Arsenal cope with that as well? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Now, I know that Thomas Partey really is loved by Arsenal. So let me know in the comment box below, what do you think about Martin Zubimendi coming in and potentially replacing Thomas Partey in this midfield? We are used to having Thomas Partey in that team every single match day, every single weekend. Whenever we're expecting to see Arsenal, we expect to see Thomas Partey unless he is injured. Now, we're being told that this guy is going to be coming and replacing Thomas Partey in the Arsenal team. How are you feeling? Talk to me in the comment box below. Can he do the job? Is he good enough for you? Have you done your research on Martin Zubimendi? Are you contented, or are you still skeptical and scared? Now, the first thing I want to say is that we have an attachment issue to Thomas Partey as Arsenal fans. We love him as a player, and we can't imagine Arsenal without Thomas Partey. We can't imagine the Arsenal midfield with Rice, Odegaard, and someone else. We always want to have Rice, Odegaard, or Rice and another player, but at the best of the midfield has to be Thomas Partey. And that is rightly earned by Thomas Partey. He has earned that status of being the player that everyone wants to see in this Arsenal team. The reason for that is he has come in and given us the element of Alexander Songbelong that we have been missing for quite a while. Remember, when Arsenal lost Alexander Songbelong, we brought in a couple of players to help us in that position. Granit Xhaka was brought in, it didn't work out. Francis Coquelin was also brought in, it didn't work out. So Arsenal kept on struggling and struggling and struggling. We also brought in Torreira. Wasn't a bad player, but it didn't work out. He wasn't that Alexander Songbelong, that regime of Patrick Vieira, until we got Thomas Partey, and everything absolutely worked out. So Partey in this midfield has become a loved player. He has become a symbol of Arsenal domination and a symbol of Arsenal dominance, especially every single weekend. That's why I'm not surprised that so many people are saying Martin Zubimendi is not coming to replace Thomas Partey. Partey is a much better player. We can't lose Partey, and this and that. But how would we set up with Martin Zubimendi? And does he really complement, add something to the Thomas Partey experience that we have had, or is he a downgrade to Thomas Partey? If you look at how Arsenal have been setting up in this season, especially with Thomas Partey being fit, this has been our lineup predominantly during the back end of the campaign, with the back four of William Saliba, Gabriel, Jalen Timber, and Lewis Skelly, and in midfield, Thomas Partey at the best of the midfield, alongside Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. Now, Kai Havertz, obviously, before getting injured, was our centre forward, being replaced by Mikel Merino. Gabriel Martinelli, Oleandro Trossard on the left-hand side, and then Bukayo Saka coming back on the right-hand side, replacing Ethan Nwaneri. And on a good day, that would be Arsenal's best starting 11. Maybe you'd bring in Ricardo Calafiori in that team, and maybe I think that would be our best team, right? Maybe Kai Havertz comes back, and that is our best team. This is how Arsenal would set up on any good day with Thomas Partey and everyone fit. And it's not a bad lineup, right? It's a very good lineup. Remember, Mikel Arteta asked for Thomas Partey in the first window, in the first full summer that he had at Arsenal. He said, I want so many players in this team. I want to build a team, but I'm going to build it around Thomas Partey. And Partey has been that player that everyone is used to. Whenever Arsenal have a Partey in the midfield, there is a Partey on and off the pitch. But Martin Zubimendi is quite different. And this is the first way Arsenal would set up with Martin Zubimendi. It would be harsh, right? But it would be Mikel Arteta making the unthinkable decision of replacing Thomas Partey. Partey goes out of the starting 11, and Martin Zubimendi comes into the starting 11. This is the first way of Martin Zubimendi lining up and setting up at Arsenal. And I know a few people are going to be very skeptical about this. A few people are going to be angry, actually, about this. He can't replace Thomas Partey. We can't do that. But he can. Martin Zubimendi is a defensive midfielder. And when you splash 51 million on a new defensive midfielder that is not 21, 22, or 23 years of age, that means that you've signed a player close or in his prime to come in and do the job, to come in and start games for you, to come in and be the main man in that midfield. So I'm sorry to people who love Thomas Partey. This might be the way Arsenal set up, especially in midfield, come next season, with Martin Zubimendi at the best of the midfield, Declan Rice with his energy in that number 8 role, and Martin Odegaard with his honesty and authenticity and creativity right on the right hand side. Now, the question that many people are asking themselves is, when you have Thomas Partey here, you have a couple of things that Arsenal enjoy, right? If you have Thomas Partey in this team, the first thing you have a very confident player who is quicker and very reliable to receive the ball from David Raya and then progress with the ball high up the pitch. That's the first thing that Arsenal fans love about Thomas Partey. And in fact, if you think about the first leg at the Emirates against PSG, Arsenal should have won that game. Arsenal could have won that game, right? Maybe we shouldn't have because we didn't have a good performance, but we could have won that game. But without Thomas Partey, Arsenal didn't have a player that just loves, is able, and can, right? Or, combine all those words, do this. Pick up the ball from this area of the pitch. Let me just pick up my arrows right here, right? Pick up the ball from this area of the pitch, right here from David Raya, from the back line, and, drive with it. That is what Thomas Partey does. And without Thomas Partey in that game, it meant that Declan Rice had to drop here. Now, Declan Rice is a very fantastic player at driving, right? Driving through the midfield. But the problem Rice has is that he's not as press resistant, first and foremost, as Declan Rice in this area of the pitch. That's number one. Rice is not as press resistant as Partey. And then Partey is so comfortable dropping here and finding passes, either side of the pitch. He's so good at doing that. And Declan Rice is not that player. And we saw it again against Liverpool over the weekend when Arsenal played with Mikel Merino in that role. Mikel Merino ended up picking up a red card. Now, Mikel Merino is a technical player and he's gifted. And I think he can do that to some extent, in my opinion. It's just that Partey does it so well. When we look at other players trying to do it, we're like, no, he can't. Like, I can't be watching this. It is dreadful. And that's why Mikel has gone, I'm not going to force Declan Rice to do that. I'm going to bring in a player who is so technical, he can do that so that we don't miss Thomas Partey. And that player is that guy, Martin Zubimendi. So Martin Zubimendi will be coming into this Arsenal team and he will be replacing Thomas Partey directly. It makes more sense for us to understand this quickly than for us to hide under the lie that is coming to replace Jorginho. How many times does Jorginho play? Like, do you spend 51 million and sign a 26-year-old Spanish international to come and replace a 30-year-old in the squad, a 33-year-old in the squad that you signed for around 12 million from Chelsea? No, you don't do that. No club actually does that. So that's the first way Arsenal will set up with Martin Zubimendi in this team. However, there are other ways we could set up with Martin Zubimendi, and I think this one would this is going to be a favorite for people who love Thomas Partey. So what we have seen in the past is that Mikel Arteta is a big fan of Thomas Partey, obviously, and Partey has played at right back before. So let's take out Julian Timber for a second. Partey at right back and Martin Zubimendi at the base of the midfield. And this could be in games that Mikel Arteta is sure he's going to suffocate the opponent and he's going to dominate and dominate and dominate. So if you have Odegaard and you have Declan Rice in the midfield, what you can do, you can have Odegaard commit to the final line of attack and Declan Rice commit as well, sorry about that, to the final line of attack as well. So you have 5 attackers. We have seen Arsenal do this before in the 22-23 campaign, and we have seen Manchester City do this before as well, during the time when they had Gabriel Jesus, Alexander Zinchenko, and the others. So you can have, you can commit more numbers forward, right? And what this does for you as an Arsenal side is, because we really struggle with teams that, teams really give us a hard problem, a hard time, especially teams that sit in a low block, teams that sit in good defensive shapes. So if you have 5 players penetrating the last line of your opponent, it means you have more bodies in the penalty area. You can have Kai Havertz right into the penalty area. You can have Martinelli into the penalty area. You can have Declan Rice as well. You have Odegaard as well, and then you've got Saka. We can have more players in the penalty area, and maybe that could solve our problem of not scoring goals enough. And then what Arsenal can do, then what Arteta can do, and we've seen this a couple of times, he can push Martin Zubimendi right here to cover for Rice, to cover for Havertz, to cover for Gabriel Martinelli, and then he can also push Thomas Partey right here in behind here to cover for Odegaard and to cover for Saka as well. So that means that, of course, you're still very vulnerable to a counter attack, but that means that in terms of catching you on the break, this area of the pitch is covered for, and this area of the pitch is covered for as well. And of course, you have the likes of Lewis Skelly, who are going to push up high up the pitch to to support. You have William Saliba around here. You have Gabriel as well around here. So you can have the field tilt that Mikel Arteta loves so much, but you can still suffocate teams, into surrendering. That is one of the things that a player like Martin Zubimendi is going to allow Mikel Arteta to do. You can play Thomas Partey in the same team, but it means that you have to compromise on one of the positions. So yeah, of course, the other way we can do it without Thomas Partey, you can have Lewis Skelly moving into midfield alongside Martin Zubimendi, and we have seen this against Madrid, didn't we? What we saw was Lewis Skelly and Thomas Partey. So you have Saliba coming back here, and you have Gabriel coming back here as well. Julian Timber returning, and Skelly returning as well. Let's say we keep out Odegaard. So what we saw and what you could have is Martin Zubimendi in this midfield position, but Lewis Skelly pushing up and inverting into a midfielder. So you have a back 3 spread out with Saliba, with Gabriel on the left-hand side, Saliba in the middle, and Julian Timber kind of tacking wide as well. So you could have that, right? Again, that is another way Arsenal could use Martin Zubimendi. He's such a flexible player, he's such a versatile player, and he's such a player that is so good. He's going to allow Mikel Arteta to have a couple of options in different games and in different, on different stages as well. Now, I want to answer this question on this video. Does he replace Thomas Partey? I think we'll do a video on why Arteta signed him specifically. But does he replace Thomas Partey? Yes and no. If Arteta is going to keep in demand of the attributes of Thomas Partey, that physical aggression, that energy, you might not get it from Martin Zubimendi. Picture Martin Zubimendi as a Lodri. Lodri is this giant of a midfielder, but much of the work he does is not about his physicality. Much of the work he does is about his brain. So think about Martin Zubimendi as the player that will control the game using his brain, and think about Thomas Partey as a player that has got the ability to control the game with his energy and physicality. He can just pick up the ball all the time and do it perfectly all the time and just drive. He can shrug off players. He's so good at doing that. But Martin Zubimendi is a very good player at doing that as well. So does he replace Partey? Maybe doesn't, right? Maybe doesn't. Maybe comes in and Arteta changes the way we see Arsenal. Arteta changes the way Arsenal play. Maybe comes in and we see a different Arsenal side from the side we have seen under Thomas Partey's control and leadership in midfield, right? So that is how Arsenal could set up with Martin Zubimendi. We'll do a video on why Arsenal chose Martin Zubimendi over all the options that were available to them in the market. That should be coming out on the channel very soon. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. The transfer window is here. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. We'll be doing a lot of your content. Hit the share button. Hit that like button. Always, they help out to get the content out there. I'll see you right in the next.